Yeah, g'day YouTubers, Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. Today we're going to do a product review on the Jolly Star chain grinder. This is just rebadged for Pro Cut. So this is made by Tecomec and it's a bit of an upgrade. It's much more expensive than the Jolly Evo. I've got the Jolly Evo. But what I really like on this one, well, I think I'm going to like it, and I won't know until I test it, is this vice mechanism. This vice mechanism is totally different than a lot of the other vice mechanisms. It's got this handle, and it's got this the rails closed together. Now, it does that on the Jolly Evo, but it's a different setup. So hopefully, this gives it justice, because they're selling this type of clamping mechanism all over the internet, so it's very, very popular. Anyway, we'll have a look. So as you can see, there's a manual, Tecomec Jolly Star, all different languages, and at the back has usually got some bits and pieces there. Bit of reading for me, but I don't think I'll find anything I don't know about. And oh yeah, so we open it up. That's a chain guard, so that's that one. Just put him over there on the bench. Geez, the first thing I notice is the width of the base. That's a lot wider than a standard. That looks a lot bigger. See if we zoom out there. Yeah, that's actually a lot bigger. And interesting how they put screws in here rather than little tight rivets. The spacing on this, the hole spacing is 125 millimeters. I think the base is 150 millimeters wide, so much bigger. I'm used to a hole spacing of about 82 millimeters, so this is much bigger at 125. It's got the sliding base on it, tilts as well. So you've got this tilt function like that. Feels very direct and smooth. And the handle mechanism's just up, down, up, down. And if you push this little red button, you can pull the handle back out and face it in different positions so it opens and closes. So depends how you like to hold the handle and where you like to handle it. It depends where you're going to put it. Then you've got these little spring-loaded parts here so that the chain spins around. It's a very popular type vice. I've seen it on a lot of the Oregons as well, on the 520s I think it is. Now, the only reason that I wanted to buy this one and not the one with the hydraulics, you can buy one that's got a hydraulic system fitted to it. They're much more expensive, but I'm hearing a lot of reports that you're getting a lot of leakage on them, so I really don't want to buy one. And yeah, we'll find out how good this is. So right, looks like a box of grinding wheels in there, 6mm, 3.2 and 4.7, so box of discs. Knob. Oh, it's got a spare knob there. Oh no, that's a knob at the back. Oh yeah, some Allen keys. Little gauge. So, yeah, well, we've got all the bits and pieces in there. Alright, that's that. Oh, I think the motor, oh no, the motor's, oh, I've got a bit of a jigsaw puzzle getting into this box. There we go. There it comes out. That's all. It's actually quite heavy. Wow. The motor, all the motor assembly. Wow, gonna have some fun with this. This is another feature. Going to play around with this feature and show you what that does. Anyway, we'll assemble it and put it together and do a bit of a review on it. I think that's all the parts in the box, nothing else. They're all the bits and pieces on the table there. So we'll put it all together, set it all up, and check it out. Okay, so we assembled the Jolly Star, put it all together, put a bit of angle iron here because I can move it from vise to vise, and that makes it a lot easier. Now, I've already got a Jolly Evo, and we'll just put a slide up of the Jolly Evo up there. And the difference between the Jolly Star and the Jolly Evo is that the Jolly Evo is a lot cheaper, but it has a movable vise, whereas the Jolly Star has a tiltable vise. I actually like the tiltable vise, reason being that if I've got to give 10 degrees downward tilt, I don't have to put my head down the side and move the vise backwards and forwards and line it up with 10 degrees. It's a fairly straightforward one-step operation to put 10 degrees downward tilt on the Jolly Star. So it's just a matter of loosening this knob. If you want to do a right-hand tooth, push it away from you. There's a little jingle that says right away. So a right-hand tooth, you view the right-hand tooth from the back, right? So right-hand tooth is towards you, the operator. And if you want to do 10 degrees downward tilt, you'll push that knob away from you. And if you want to do 10 degrees tilt on the left-hand side, you'll pull that towards you. Pretty straightforward. That's what I like about the tiltable vise as opposed to the slidable vise. Going back a few years ago, when I got the Jolly Evo, I thought, wow, slidable vise, but more time consuming setting it up, sliding backwards and forwards and making sure you line it up, whereas this is just a one-click operation, one click forwards, one click backwards. It's got some ball bearings on springs in there. You can really feel the clicking, so it really does work good. Now, the other thing that the Jolly Star has, which is a little bit different on a lot of other grinders, is the 10 degrees downward tilt is really set up for this type of grinder. For those that really like the 10 degrees downward tilt, and typically you'll find that on grinders that are Oregon origin or Oregon clones, or in this case Tecomec. So they really, in this particular case, this is a bit of a clone. There's a little bits of 511 AX in here, the Oregon 511 AX grinder, and the 520, especially with this handle mechanism, and we'll go over that. But I want to draw your attention to the 10 degrees downward tilt. Now, for those that are looking at this and saying, what's that yellow knob there? Well, that's an interesting subject, that, because when you tilt this knob, when you twist it out, all as it does is stop the head from moving. It's some sort of safety lock. I don't know why you'd ever use it. I can't see me ever using, but nonetheless it is. What I want to draw your attention to, you'll see on there it's got 10 degrees down, right? And on this face here, you will line up that face there with 10 degrees down, and you'll line that face up with 0, which is normal. What it actually will do is give you an extra 2.5 degrees on the 10 degrees down. So if you hold a file at 10 degrees tilt, it means that the file will be lowered. When you lower the file, the back of the tooth gets a little gap and you start filing the front. So therefore the top plate angle actually changes by 2.5 degrees. So that's what you're doing. You're offsetting the 2.5 degrees, but equally you could just go behind the scale and do it there. So we can have a look at that. So if you pull the grinder head down, you've got a scale at the back. There it is there. And as you can see, it's set on 62.5 degrees. Pretty straightforward. Now, the other thing is you've also got the same setup, and we'll just zoom in there, on here. So if I want to do 30 degrees on this setup here, you can set this to 30 degrees, which is there, right? So that's 30 degrees, that's 30 degrees there. And you'll see where it says 10 degrees, down 10 degrees, right? So that's what that says there. So what you need to do is add another 2.5 degrees. So you turn that to there, and you've got 32.5 degrees. Same as on the other side. So that's your 10 degrees down. Then the other thing is, all you've got to do is tilt the vise. So that's your offset, right? Your 2.5 degrees offset. So in this case, we're setting the vise for a left-hand tooth. We'll pull that towards us, and let's just check and make sure that's all set up. Just needs a little bit more, just a touch. We'll just tighten that up a little bit and make sure that that's turned exactly right. Tighten the vise up. Okay, so that's all set now for 10 degrees downward tilt on the top plate cutting angle and on the top plate. Now what I really like about this setup here is that if you hold your thumb on here and pull the handle towards you, you can move this any way you want, 360 degrees, and this will open and close the vise with very little movement. So what I will do, I'll show you how good that works. And this is the reason why I brought this grinder, because I was really interested in this feature. This type of vise mechanism is available on eBay or Amazon, and it really, Tecomec sell them. I think there's clones of them as well. It's probably the best self-centering vise around, but it's very easy to use. And if we zoom in there, we'll get a good shot. We'll just go up a little bit. And it's the reason why I really brought the grinder, because I hadn't had a vise like this. So with a little bit of movement, you can see that both vices or both grips move in and out. And what it does have is have a little bit of it's got a bit of wobble, right? That is deliberate. And the whole idea of that is so that this clamps up uniform on the drive links. It really works good. Rather than clamp just in the middle, it clamps about 125 millimeter space in, right? That's about 120 foot. So it clamps quite a few. It really does work that good. But the best part about it is that when you put a chain in there, right, that the movement to tighten it up is only a little bit like that. Well, we can actually demonstrate that. So I've got a little section of chain here. Here's a little section of chain. And the other thing that they've done here, so, okay, that's tight now. And if you just move it a little bit, it's loose. You don't have to move it much. See, it actually works fantastic. So, depends where you want to keep this handle. You might want it on this side. Depends whether you're a left-hander or a right-hander. But that's the best part about it. You can have it down the bottom anywhere you want. I generally like to have it like that, so it's just slightly down a little bit, so when I lift it up, the chain's loose. A little bit of movement locks it back down. Really does work good. Now, you could turn around and say, oh, why don't you get a hydraulic one? Yeah, I heard they're better. Yes, a hydraulic do work good, but they're prone to leaking. So in a commercial environment, I wouldn't get one of those. Maybe for the homeowner, they may be okay. But I actually do like using the handle. I reckon it works actually quite good. So really happy with it. The only thing that I will say about the top plate angle, it goes from 40 degrees rather than the 35. Don't know anyone that would use that amount. The top plate cutting angle at the back goes from 90 to 40 degrees. That's fairly standard as well. The motor is 214 watts. The other thing that I did, the only modification that I did, was change the little globe to an LED because it didn't have an LED. And if you turn it on, you can see that it's quite bright. It's a equivalent to a 22 watt globe. Really does work good. You do have these large little round discs here, so the chain runs over there a lot easier than the standard one. The other thing is the Jolly Evo costs about $360. It has a slidable vise. This is much more expensive than a Jolly Evo. Typically this is around $499, so $500. And the only reason I can think that this is much more expensive is that this is made in Italy, not made in China. So that would be another reason. And the motor is a little bit different than the one on the different shape, different fins, looks a bit different. So it's got more than enough power. And the features on this are quite good. It doesn't have a slidable vise. So that actually means that it's interesting when we look at when the wheel gets smaller and we talk about how it lines up for a wheel alignment. So we'll just go over that very briefly. Okay, so when we talk about the wheel alignment, they try and use fancy words describing that it's self-adjusting, that the centre line, that the grinding wheel, as the grinding wheel wears, it self-adjusts. Well, nothing self-adjusts. There's no such thing as it self-adjusts. What they're trying to tell you is that if you were to look at the pivot point here, and if you were to look at the centre line there, can you see now that the middle of the wheel, where the ruler is right here, is about 1.5 inches away from the ruler. But as you pull this down, it comes into alignment. And it stays in alignment for quite a fair distance, more than what the wheel will wear. So as we change in the arc, and we'll zoom in there so that you can see this a lot better, I wouldn't say that it self-compensates, but what it actually does, you see, when I lift up, you can see that going out of alignment. So it's just starting to come into alignment at that point. And at that point there, you notice you move it up and down there, there's a little bit of movement, but not much. So when it's in this point here where it's brand new, it actually stays in that point for quite a while before it starts moving on the other side of the ruler. And that's what they're trying to say, it compensates for wheel wear. It doesn't, nothing compensates. All as that means is as this wheel moves in its arc up and down, the ruler's fixed and the centre line of the grinding wheel moves as we move up and down. And that's what they're talking about. So it's got good wheel alignment. Another thing that you hear people talk about and complain about, I don't know what they use to measure it, but this is a digital angle gauge, a Klein digital angle gauge, fairly good accuracy, within 0.2 of a degree or something like that there, so it's pretty bloody accurate. And we check the top plate cutting angle on 60 degrees, 90 degrees, 80 degrees, 40 degrees, spot on. Can't fault it. We check the top plate cutting angle from 0 to 40 degrees, perfect. I'd be lucky if it was out of half a degree. I couldn't even find a fault in it. It was spot on. So you need something like this if you're going to check the accuracy of the top plate cutting angle, which is this one here, and if you're going to check the top plate angle here. Now, another thing that customers that use chainsaw grinders complain about is people turn around and say, oh, I think there's something wrong with my chainsaw grinder. When I grind on the left and then I grind on the right, they're longer on one side than the other side. How many times have I heard that one? Well, generally, most of the times that this is an operator error. I've been guilty of it as well. I think we all have. And I'll try to explain this as best as I can. When your chain, and I've got a steel chain RS from Still, and I measured that with a digital caliper, and I found that to be out by 0.2 of a millimetre, which would be totally acceptable. I've found chains to be out by 0.3, 0.4 of a millimetre. Okay, so in this situation, if you're going to be out by that much, an average of, say, 0.3 millimetres, it's impossible to grind the left side and the right side, and people are measuring them with a caliper. And one thing, when you look at the back of a tooth, and this is just a little section of a tooth here, is the back section of it can be very rough. This back section here. So a lot of times you'll hear them say, oh, look, get a caliper and measure your teeth. And they turn around and say, get the shortest one and make them all the same length. So you hear this all the time. So if we say that the teeth can be out to 0.3 to 0.4 of a millimetre, worst case scenario, the way that I sharpen a chain is that I pick a chain up and I look at it and I get a tooth that looks like it's about the average length, right? And then I'll put it in here and just get a texter and mark it. Now, normally speaking, if the angles haven't changed, and what I mean by that is, let's say that the top plate cutting angle, we set that to move that over to 60 degrees. That's fairly uniform, right? And we move this to 30 degrees. We set our backstop up, put our chain in, put our backstop up, bring the grinding wheel down, adjust the backstop till the chain just kisses the wheel. That's our starting position. Start the grinder, take a pass. If it hasn't taken enough metal off, just adjust this until it has, then do all the teeth the same side. Now what a lot of people do is that they just turn this on the next side. So if they started with a left-hand tooth, they'll turn it to the right hand, don't set up, they'll just start grinding again. And then I wonder why, it's different. You have to do exactly the same thing. If you set it up for the left hand, you've got to set it up for the right hand, which means doing the same thing, pulling the grinding wheel down and adjusting this to make sure that it's just kissing, and it will take the same amount off left and right if you set it up. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.